Come on. Come on. No? Okay. Okay. All right. So it is good afternoon, beloveds. I'm running just a hair later than I would prefer to, because somebody, not this one, Dante, yeah, not yet. Giovanni has decided he's a lap cat. And it's really hard to get out from under Giovanni when he is in your lap. It's pretty amazing. So he's a good 11 pounds. So he takes up the whole lap, and he's nice and warm, which, it's July, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but still. And that's the third time he sat in my lap today. So, yeah. So super excited about that. Okay. And I'm being distracted by Dante right now, who comes in for a snuggle while we do live streams, right? Yes, we do. Okay. What we are doing is EMMA CURTIS HOPKINS High Mysticism. This is a project that started a while ago, when I was taking Christian Science mental practice, again, by EMMA CURTIS HOPKINS. And I was like, you know what? I have to read the chapter anyway. I might as well read it live, based on the fact that somebody said, well, there's an Audible on YouTube, but she's boring. And I was like, well, I can promise you I'm not going to be boring. Maybe boring in parts, but because I'm not just giving you a straight reading. I'm going to respond to the material. Not necessarily react, but sometimes I do react to the material. I'm going to respond to the material. But I also discovered, I love doing the little short daily readings in the morning, but for this kind of stuff, you can't do that. You got to sit down and read it. So we sit down and read the chapter, and it can take anywhere from an hour to 2. Oh. So Emma, she's kind of killing me here. But it's worth it. I've done Christian Science Mental Practice by EMMA CURTIS HOPKINS. I've done Reading of the Bible Again for the first time by Marcus J. Borg. I've also done 5 Emerson essays, and I may go back and do the rest of the Emerson essays, because Emerson, you either love or don't love Emerson. I refuse to say I hate Emerson, but a lot of us who started out our interactions with Emerson, we're not fans, even though he did have a huge influence on Ernest Holmes. So Jesse is currently teaching an Emerson, I don't know why I used air quotes there, an Emerson study, where he's doing the 5 essays. And I said, send me the essays, I'll read them. And then I went, I really had such a good time doing it. I was like, maybe I'll go back and read the rest of them. Oh, I just noticed that hang on. Okay. Changing the mic. Which is a good thing to do before I start reading. And especially since Dante just went out of the room. And so, I'm getting a lot out of it. And I thought I'd read this book before. I was wrong. Because I looked everywhere and I couldn't find it. So I was like, and this is towards the end of her career. This is a culmination of all of that which she was teaching. And there is a reason she's called the teacher of teachers. And sometimes you read this material and you go, what in the world is she talking about? And sometimes you're like, oh, I get you. So that's where we are. Now, the first 6 chapters had different titles. The last 6 chapters appear to be ministry. That's kind of the way she sets up her stuff. It's the first 6 chapters, she's teaching you something. And then the last 6 chapters, she's teaching you how to use what she taught you in the first 6 chapters. So I think that's why she titled them ministry. She is an interesting woman. Definitely an interesting woman. So, yeah. So I'm just going to do a real quick housekeeping and then we'll get into this. Just as a reminder, because I am doing this for Creative Life Spiritual Center. Our website is creativelife.org. Our constant contact email, info@creativelife.org. That'll get you 1 email a week, tells you what's going on for the week and the month. Hot links are hot, blind CC. Nobody's going to see your email. And then the social media, I'll mention the social media because we don't monetize it. We are providing this because we think we want to share the good tools that we have. So, and we do it over social media. And so what we ask, a free and easy way that you can support the center is by supporting our social media. Go like, subscribe, follow based on which platform you're on, and then engage with the individual posts by reacting, commenting, and sharing. So we are Creative Life Spiritual Center or Creative Life Spark, and I'm running Ryan across all the social medias that I am on. So there is that. All right. My water bottle is full. My medication has been taken. My light has been charged. So let's talk about Chapter 9 in High Mysticism by EMMA CURTIS HOPKINS. Oh, and hang on while I swap my highlighters. So, all right. Okay. All right. So this one has a little... It has a prologue. Okay. So first we have a little thing about the 9th chapter. So this 9th lesson teaches to stand by our super one with its high language till its language fruitings lay out before us our true life field. It teaches to find that hidden self. It teaches to speak from that. It teaches to choose what we truly will and shows it as universal will, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, out of reach of death and those shadows of death that hurt the flesh and of mind, the hurts of flesh and mind. Okay, so this is the prologue. Oh, and that's signed ECH. So, like, she wrote that prologue about what she's going to talk about in this chapter. So, prologue. The Italian flagellants of the 13th century lashed themselves and gashed themselves with thongs and scissors, but they felt no pain, for the zeal which arose from some central flame within them permeated them through all their flesh, and of itself neutralized flesh sensations. Even their minds were so alive with the central flame that they sprang the bounds of self-pity in unconsciousness of personal hurts. Some people explained that it was innate will rising to new action with a new sense, as I willed and a new sense was given me. The persecuted English Quakers of the 17th century declared that no blows or stones which their enemies administered upon them with ferocious enemy were felt by them, for the central fire rose up in them, neutralizing outward sensations by its ecstatic flame. They called it God willing in them. Martyrs of old sang hymns in the midst of their enemies' hot bonfires, and their faces were seen to shine with inward ecstasy, even as Stephen's face shone while the hurling stones were cutting him. They saw his face as it had been the face of an angel, and that's from Acts 6:15. The martyrs, like the Quakers, called the mystery of supernal sensation God willing them to will and to do. Some people have called that conquering central flame, which can so overpower all human sensation and mental awareness, the I am of humanity. Some have called it the spirit of humanity. This was Solomon's name for it. Some have called it the Spirit of God. Ezra called it the Spirit of God. So did Ezekiel, the prophet who was named the strength of Jehovah. Jesus, the all-overshining Jesus of Nazareth, declared that the Spirit of God is upon me. He also said, I am, and transcended all other martyrs in the risen splendor of the central flame common to the hidden deep in all humanity. He knew the risen vigor as will. Whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother. He shouted of his glorification despite the wounds of the cross, and cried aloud of his almighty identification with universal spirit. Into thy hands I commend my spirit. Socrates, hundreds of years before the time of Jesus, felt himself outshining himself in the face of threatening martyrdom, and said to the judges, I go about trying to persuade both young and old, not to busy themselves about their bodies, of about money, more than about their soul. Manifestly, it rules in us a king. It is no wonder, then, that over the cross of him who picked himself up out of martyrdom and showed himself indestructible soul, they wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of soldiers of God, the Israelites, the Jews. One historic life of this martyr transcending king, lately written, lays such stress on the pains and torments of his martyrdom that people shudder and weep when they read it. And supposedly the greatest praise that has been lavished on an eloquent New York preacher reads, we can almost feel the blood drip on our heads as we hear him preach the cross. But the true printed life of Jesus should glory in telling of his sense of outglowing all wounds on a still grander scale than the flagellants and the Quakers and the noblest of earth's martyrs, because he knew himself with ecstatic zeal as God itself, proving the rightful status of all humanity. Thus, being a man maketh thyself God, they said. Mystical science, which shows how the secret flame can be wooed to rise superior to all human laws, physical and mental, tells of an oversplendor of attention toward us, ever wooing our attention till its likeness in us rises into oneness with its splendor as undefeatable greatness, the greatness of unconquerable will. By so many roots, as the marsh grass sends in the sod, I will hardly lay me a hold of the greatness of God. He sent from above, he took me, he drew me out of many waters, even the waters of humiliation. It is not a matter of consciousness or unconsciousness of mind or body. It is not a matter of right or wrong of human calculation. It is the new kingdom's super life. Okay. I don't know what she's about to get into, other than, she clearly is talking about rising above the body and mind, rising up into the I am. Now, I don't know why she started with the flagellants. I don't agree with that. I don't think anybody should beat or torture themselves to prove that they are godly. To prove that the body doesn't matter. I think that took us down a really dark path. Now, her talking about the martyrs, I get, because it is nice to know that if you have that flame and you are being tortured, that you don't have to be tortured. But let's not go about torturing each other to prove it, okay? That is one of the things that just really gets me about religion. It's like, well, I'm right and you're wrong, so I'm going to torture you to prove it. And Jesus isn't about that. Jesus may have given up his life, but he did it so that the rest of us wouldn't have to. Okay? It'd be nice if we could just talk to each other and not torture each other. So, because I was reading that, I'm like, I'm starting with the flagellants, and no. That idea just leads to all kinds of, no. Because if you'll do it to yourself, what's going to stop you from doing it to other people? And it's not okay. So, all right, so let's get into the actual ministry and see what she's actually going to talk about. And let's hope that this talk about martyrdom. She is a product of a very certain period of time, too. I get it. Carrie Nation, and if you don't know who that is, you can look her up. She was a teetotaler, And the reason she's famous is because people really hated her. But there was a reason why she was a teetotaler. And it was meaning she was over 6 feet tall, and she would walk into bars with a Bible in one hand and an axe in the other and smash up alcohol. And she did it because men were overindulging and beating their wives. Okay? So I get where she's coming from. I don't agree with her methods, but I get where she's coming from. Just like with this, though, in the flagellants, I get where they're coming from, but I don't agree with their methods. There are better ways to arrive at what Emma is about to teach, and martyrdom, it's not a path I will choose. So, all right. So, this is chapter 9, ministry. Numbers were alive to the ancients. Notice Parmenides facing the one till form and differentiations disappeared. The cosmic order let go, and he was alone as if he were the alone. There is but one self, and thou art that self. 5 was a living number to the Hebrews. It signified the representative, as Joseph for the Pharaoh, as Jesus for Jehovah. Its symbol was the sardonyx, which held the engraving of the royal eye deputy. Apollonius of Tyane would not allow his disciples to speak the number 9 aloud, as it was to him the magician's number, the number of enchantment. If sounded, it was likely to hit the super eye, having its location in a point back of the breast. To hit that eye, or speak forth from that eye, would be like wishing the words on somebody or something. Learn to wake the hidden eye, but note the kindling mystery of it as the living black coal lingering in the breast, waiting the bellows breath of right declaration. I don't know what she's talking about. Outside of she is right now, she is talking about sacred geometry. You can look it up. It's a thing. To humanity, the old I must aver according to appearance as I am sick or I am overworked. This is its gospel truth. But the I, as kindling coals, avers, I, living vigor, I, godly strength, I, decree. Ye shall eat of the old fruit, ye shall eat of the new fruit, according to kindling or non-kindling of the words by recognition of the I spark. My spirit shall not forever be humbled in humanity. I am the light. They that eateth me shall live by me. I is a fodder. Humanity shall eat of the old fruit till the ninth, or till willing to take up the super I's great sayings, the I decree. At the ninth, humanity is willing to refuse the old fruitings. They declare as Christ in them, I, the alive, I, the eternal, I, the transfiguring and transforming all things by my I decree. The ancients cherished the scarab that drops its seed into a dirt ball for universal atmosphere, to stir it, to break its coverings, and fly as winged creature. They name it symbol of resurrection of humanity, as determining God will from the encasement of the shadow body, formed of matter woven with mind threads, the stubborn web of hiding, the shadow system gathered around the me. Okay, she's pulling in a little bit of weird Egyptian cemeteries, symbology. The scarab, which is commonly called the dung beetle. Yeah. But it's all over Egyptian resurrection mythology, so we'll see where she's going. Rise, my soul, and stretch thy wings, they better proportion trace. 9 is the assumption, the joy of Mary, the taking for granted, the supposing of a thing without visible proof, the unwarrantable claim. The great assumption is the great I spark speaking in its own joyous facts, which come forth glorying the outer person with new fruiting. Okay, this is the closest she's got to telling us what she's talking about. 9 stands for the closing of an old cycle and the opening of a new cycle. The old touching the new and the new touching the old, like beads on a rosary. The great mystics have prophesied that the Messiah appears at the beginning of some 9 cycle as the old I giving way to the new I, the old I telling the truth of itself to the new I, the old I telling the truth of itself and others according to appearances, and the new I and others according to the appearances and the new I, or the awakening I, telling the truth according to the kingdom of the super spark, till it flashes its dominion over and inanimate. It is the daring response of the me, the I praised, according to the 5th revelation or the 5th study. It is indeed the swift discovery of Hugo of St. Victor that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. Which is the first thing she said so far in this chapter that makes any sense. But welcome to Emma. This is who she is. And there is a reason why this one's called High Mysticism. Acknowledge the highest, the great countenance of the absolute, and its I seed awakes with the assumption, the unwarrantable claim, and the word of the Lordship very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it, as Moses said to the children of Israel in the land of Moab. I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me into Eshcol of Canaan. And now, lo, I am this day 85 years old, declared Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who stood with good report from Eshcol as easily manageable by Israel, when others said there were unmanageable giants to meet. The divine this is the divine one. Yep, the divine one that has its location in a point back of the breast, whose flame Apollonius asked his disciples to stir with good reports, is still alive in every breast on earth, and ofttimes assumption of the things it sees, it feels, it knows, will cause them to show forth, brightening all the paths in which we daily move with the unprecedented, the unbelievable, and the unexpected. Where is thy spark, Lanu? Speak thou from that. The ministry of acknowledgement and recognition into which we are hurried is wide and far-reaching, or near and intimate in demonstration, according as our vision proceeds far or keeps close. I will fetch my knowledge from afar, said young Elihu. Remember that thou magnify its work, which people may behold. The 40 Christians enrolled in the 12th Roman Legion lifted up their hands to God in high heaven when the Quadi seemed about to destroy the legion, and Marcus Aurelius Antonius wrote it down for all ages to notice, that a Roman victory was wrested from the Quadi by the God of 40 Christians, and not by the swords and spears of the vaunted legion. Okay, that's interesting. I've not heard that story before. The original St. Francis, it does seem that she pulls from history to demonstrate what she's talking about. But a lot of things that she's pulling from history, like, I've got a background in anthropology, archaeology. My husband has a background in history. And yet, a lot of the people she's talking about, I've never heard of. one of the beautiful things about reading her is that it gives me rabbit holes to go down. So here we are. Okay, back to Emma. The original Francis Schlatter cured thousands of people by sensing that his God was near at hand, close and compassing, with only just one kind and merciful strength in its almighty composition, and that it was his will to heal through the willing Francis Schlatter. His God would not let him be fed or warmly clothed or rested when weary, but he would touch Schlatter's hand with curative balms for his neighbors. The science of the recognition of the presence of God in the universe by the uplift of vision as to divine benefits is the oldest science, maintaining its stately march through the long non-acceptance of the human race. In other words, it's always been here and we just keep ignoring it, right? Abram, 1920 BC, was told to lift up his eyes. Dante, 1265 AD, declared that blessedness more depends upon vision than upon loving, for loving follows on after vision. It was told of a certain bishop that his lofty character and great attainments were due to his oft-time gaze towards the glory of the highest. We may now show forth lofty character and great attainments by oft-time gaze towards the highest, the great countenance of the absolute ever facing us. The deity overlooketh thee, on look thou the deity. And honestly, she just goes on. Really? Okay. Let me think about this for a minute. No matter what, okay. Judge not by appearances. I think that's what she keeps saying, look up, look up, look up. What she's saying is to look above the material conditions. Look to the supernatural. Not supernatural. She uses the word supernal. Look to the spiritual. That's the word I was trying to use there. Don't get caught up in material appearances. Look to the spiritual reality. Look to the spiritual reality. She just keeps saying, look up, look up, look up. Look to the spiritual reality, not the material appearances. This is what I keep hearing her say. I just wanted to say it in plain English because she just doesn't. She just keeps giving you examples of people who are looking at the spiritual reality instead of the material appearances and what demonstrations that they made by doing that. So, all right. She is demonstrating what she's talking about. The one mystery of humanity's accomplishing executiveness is that whatever they persistently recognize and acknowledge surely comes forward and deals with them. Recognition and acknowledgement are the two law from which something must come forth. Worthwhile or not worthwhile. Humanity must woo the majesty and responsive beneficence ever facing it. Its wooing will be astonishingly rewarded. Go away, said the elder Geonod to his son. Burn thy composition. The muses have not called you. What did the elder Geonod know about wooing the muses till they gladly came with their music, or their statuary, or their architecture, such as this present world has not set eyes upon? Even the Mokeeled terrier disputes Geonod's position that the muses neglect some people. The little dog did prove, per contra, that it is some people who neglect the muses. By much wooing of the dog, Rolf's intelligence, Mrs. Mokeel caused intelligence to speak forth through him with amazing answers to mathematical and philosophical questions. What? Moekel. Moekel. So if you want to look up Moekel's terrier, I don't know what that's going to go. But here we are. What wonderful music has closed down upon from expressing through young Geonod, when his father forbade his wooing of the muses. What enchanting singers have been silenced by teachers who did not help enlarge the smile of the song muse the young voice was trying to woo. Voice that might have stayed the wars of empires. Ooh, okay. Right there, she's just saying, don't crush their dreams. Don't crush their dreams. Interesting. Muses were ancient names for the universal all-power, demonstrating according to recognition and wooing. Our 8th lesson urged the recognition of the high and lofty one as all-power, and as the universal, ounded, super worthwhile, into whose glorious oblivion all limitations and false estimates may be thrown, by casting them away, having nothing to do with them. It is not so, is the 8th lesson's masterful shout to every word that disputes all Judah, praise of the everywhere watching Amen Ra or Brahma or God. Even the values of humanity as good in contradiction are bad to the circumcised, sacrificed, rejected on behalf of the high first estate above the pairs of opposites of good and bad, life and death, pleasure and pain. We must throw everything out to the ever-present first estate of the universally desirable. She just got weird again. This 9th lesson calls attention to the undifferentiated, ever-facing original, which the Egyptian priests called soul, the Magi called self, the Hebrews sometimes called God, and sometimes called angel of the presence, and which truly is free spirit, free beneficence, free Zeus, free giver. It is that dominant of which the ancients were speaking when they promised that whosoever should put away all words contending against high praises should find free spirit, immortal self dominating. Great promises have ever associated with the ministry of rejections, denial, sacrifices, and circumcisions. Grace, mercy, and peace from God. Teach no other doctrine, neither give heed to fables. That thou mightiest war of good warfare, wrote Paul to Timothy, the boy bishop of Ephesia. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Circumcision made without hands, putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by circumcision of Christ, quickening together with him, having spoiled principalities and powers. Okay. Hey, I'm working. Get grace, mercy, and the peace of God. Teach no other doctrine. And then she's talking about circumcision of the soul. I think that's one of those where Paul was going, you know what? You don't have to do this certain ritual to say that you belong. Yeah. All right. Did not Bashkarakanand of Benares find himself a powerful healer after rejecting the influences of the world, triumphing over them in himself, as Paul noted of Christ? Coming thus to our own free self, our own divinity spark, to our own I decree, clarifies the atmosphere of false instructions. Heretofore, hidden truth comes boldly forth. I, the mighty truth, I, the awakener of life eternal, the highest God and the innermost God is one. Okay, clarifies the atmosphere of false instructions. So again, I'm going to go back to where Paul was talking about, you don't have to do this. Oftentimes, religions will ask you to do things to prove that you belong that have nothing to do with the teaching. And it seems to be that's what she's talking about. Let's focus on the teaching, not the belonging. Because the rituals of belonging are getting in the way of the teaching, if that makes sense. I could be way off base and wrong, but that's kind of what it sounds like to me. Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of my heart. So wrote Jeremiah in a moment of freedom from his own contentious complainings. He experienced the outward joys of victorious assumption, the living nine of Apollonius. There are promises with hearkening to the heights. Whoso hearkens unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil. A friend of the bridegroom, which standeth and heareth him, rejoiceth greatly. I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. Thus we are told how satisfying the... Seriously. Sometimes it looks like a one and sometimes it looks like an I. And I don't know if it's a printing issue. Maybe it is the I truth. Okay. Thus we are told how satisfying the I truth. We always feed on the super I's great claims. It affects our constitution much or little. As an eyelash falling into a pool affects it little, but a meteor falling in affects it greatly. So we are stirred greatly or slightly by the truths we hear and proclaim. Does it stir your life pool to be told that God is great, and we know it not, as spoken through Elihu the Buzite? But if you should hear yourself one of the soundless truths, which the great Ein Sof holds hidden in the etheric silence round about your head, especially waiting for your own ears only, promising that the desire of your heart is fulfilled this day, you would tremble from head to foot with joy. You would be found declaring, thy word in me is joy to mine own heart. I, joy, ray forth joy. I ray forth my own I am, I will, I can. Joy that inwardly stirs by truth from on high is a healing energy. Or Savior, or Joshua or joy particularizes the spot or the scene of its triumphing I decree. Joshua stretches forth the spear in his hand towards I, or the mass or heap of spoiling principles as the I's old fruiting according to its gospel truth, speaking as things appear, that has gotten the better of humanity as sickness, sorrow, or despair. And Joshua, aware of the I am captain of the host of the Lord, facing him, taketh not back the hand wherewith he stretched out the spear, till all the inhabitants of I are utterly destroyed, or the spoiling principles annihilated. And in the precinct is no city save Bethel, house of the Lord, uncontaminate. What? That is clearly a story from... I'm just going to go back to the first line of that paragraph. Joy that inwardly stirs by truth from on high is a healing energy. Okay? Her example's a little weird. In ancient times, the spear, the stick, the staff, the sword, and the scepter were used to knight the commoner, or to transform the sick person into the sound person, the timid person into the bold person, the common person into the titled peer. Alicia's staff was often used with this transforming effect. Kings to this day strike with sword or scepter the shoulders of certain subjects of their realm, and Mr. Henry becomes Sir Henry, and my friend becomes your lordship. Take thee one stick and write Judah, the unseen eternal, then take another and write Joseph, the manifest eternal, and they shall become one in thine hand, said the voice of the Lord to Ezekiel, the most mystical minister among the ancient prophets. Jesus did not take a visible stick or scepter to touch the beautiful Judah self of the Joseph self of the corpse body of Nain, to make the Judah beauty glow and gleam and glorify through rosy lips and sparkling eyes and stirring blood as living widow's son at the city gates. He laid his hand on the Joseph self while steadfastly looking towards the ever-waiting angel of presence, flying swiftly, mighty in strength, ministering spirit, doing wondrously. And he told his disciples to thus lay hands on the sick that they might recover their seemingly lost immortal Judah self, the ever-near angel of presence. He drew the waiting glow and glory of humanity's angel of life, ever present, to gleam and gladden them as living strength, even when he seemed dead. I drew them with cords, with bands of love, and I was to them as they that take off the yoke on their jaws. If I keep looking to a gazelle leaping from rock to rock, I dance the gazelle dance so that people clap their hands, said the child dancer of the new age, hearkening back to the days of Aristonaxus, who taught to dance according to soul promptings and inward visionings. Keep your eyes on the eternal, and your intellect will grow. Honor and fortune exist for them who remember that they are in the presence of the high cause. Therefore, unto thee, O my strength, will I sing, animating my particular self with thy universal energy. O thou I, and I thou. Glance up often, writes Conan Doyle, to the spirits of the dead, Hosea. Sorry. Let me try that again. Glance up often, writes Conan Doyle, to the spirits of the dead. Hosea, the prophet, would say that the great writer is calling attention high, but not to the Most High. Practice the presence of the Most High. The great countenance of the Absolute, the Ein Sof, caused Nahum, the prophet, to cry out, watch the way, make thy loins strong, fortify thy powers mightily. For the loins do show strength by reason of high watch, and the I am strength is our giant truth. And when he was in a certain city, behold, a man full of leprosy, spoiling principles, that's in parentheses, who, seeing Jesus, fell on his face and besought him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. And he put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be thou clean. And immediately the leprosy departed from him. It makes a difference who is reporting a miracle as to whether the misery in its departure is mentioned or the joyous state that remains is proclaimed. Okay? It makes a difference who is reporting a miracle. All right. Luke, the physician, when reporting a case, lays stress on the malady and its exercise, as in the case of the man full of leprosy, which the leprosy departed. So Joshua lays stress on the destruction of the spoiling principles masked in the old eye's gospel truth. Mark, the founder of the Alexandrian Church, writes with burning brevity of the happy estate of unmolested cure. And he took the blind man by hand, and when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. After that, he put his hands again upon his eyes, and he was restored and saw every person clearly. Mark does not say the blindness departed. Again, notice the unction with which the physician Luke details the distressing condition of the synagogue worshiper. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed together, and could in no wise lift up herself. And when Jesus saw her, he called her to him, and said unto her, Woman, thou art loosed from thine infirmity. And he laid his hands upon her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. Notice how he threw the spoiling fruitings of the old eye away into universal solvent. So efficacious in drawing forth to visibility the stainless spark or Judah self of humanity by laying on of hands was the apostolic succession in Christian ministry. That for more than 15 centuries the Christian minister laid with sacred tenderness their ordained hands upon the Joseph breast of their sick parishioner, whoever they might be, and repeated the accepted Christian formula for making the invisible Judah effulgence one with the outward body. As with this visible oil, thy body outwardly is anointed, so our heavenly Spirit, Almighty God, grant of its infinite goodness that thy soul inwardly may be anointed with the Holy Ghost, who is the Spirit of all strength, comfort, relief, and godness, and vouchsafe for its great mercy to restore unto thee thy bodily health and strength to serve God, and send thee release from all thy pains, troubles, and diseases, both in body and mind, through Jesus Christ our Lord. And wonderful were the restorations of the Lord's self to the person who had lost sense of vital oneness of Judah and Joseph in their own bodily forms. Okay, so what she's talking about is the laying of the hands. And honestly, because I did grow up in the Catholic tradition, and that is one of the things that you do notice anywhere in the Christian tradition, because it happened to me a couple of weeks ago. When my hands are aching, I wear compression gloves, which then makes people go, well, what's wrong with you? Okay, you know what? I have a little arthritis in my hands. The compression gloves do two things. One, the light compression does help. And two, it reminds me that my hands ache a little bit, and it reminds me to be careful, okay? So that I don't hurt myself. And most of the time, people just comment on it, and then they go, oh, okay. One customer asked me if she could pray for me. Now, I was at work, and I was busy, and I said, absolutely. You please, I'm happy. And I even said, I believe in distance prayers. But she waited until I had a free moment. And then she came back and she actually laid her fingers on my wrist, on that compression glove, to do her prayer. She did that traditional laying on hands. Now, the interesting thing is, it definitely seemed to help. I felt better that day. And that is the power of prayer, you know? And that is the power of laying on hands. Now, was my faith not great enough for it to help all the time? I don't know. Sometimes I think that you know, the pain that I deal with, it has a purpose. And now we're going to go back to the first of the chapter where I'm like, don't torture yourself. And yet here I am saying, you know, the pain that I'm dealing with does support a purpose in my life. Am I Am I willing to give it up? Absolutely. But I haven't. And I'm willing to learn from it while I have it. Oh, maybe I'm making Emma's point for her. Ugh, okay. I don't agree with her about the flagellation, and yet here I am going, well, you know what? So, but that's what she's talking about is, and it's interesting that she uses Joseph for material and Judah for spiritual. Because I haven't seen her do that anywhere else, so I'm wondering where that came from. It's just in this chapter. All right, back to Emma. Labor to keep alive in your breast the spark of celestial fire, the quenchless flame, said some of the mystics. Remember the smokeless fire, the effulgent center, capable of infinite procession in extension, of so far extending radiance, the stainless spark of which Dante wrote. Stainless spark of which Dante wrote. When Jesus touches the leper and says, I will be thou clean, he is surely feeling the sweet fires running along from the God self of himself through the palms of his hands and the tips of his fingers as he cites with mystical energy the unseen angel to wake joyous soundness where no waking seemed possible. I drew them with the bands of love, and they knew not that I healed them. Take thee one stick and write Judah, then take another stick and write Joseph, and they shall be one in thine hand. Now that is the second time she said that, so it's important. The Lord, mighty to save, stands stately and majestic everywhere facing us. Two are ever in the field. One shall be taken, one left. Call, stand forth, life, health, strength. Come ye, blessed of my Father. It is God's will that you stand forth strong and glad and free. It is in my will that you stand forth strong and glad and free. It is your will that you stand forth strong and glad and free. This memora or will word is the one harmonic chord stretching its soundless note, world without end, through people and angels, and from the just, the mighty will filling the universe. Only they who have felt the blaze in their own breast can sense the vital fire that burns in the breast of their neighbor, when their form seems lifeless, unconscious, past nighting with their own divinity. Therefore, it is that all lessons of ineffable mysticism return again and again to the relation of one's own Lord self to the high I am, the Lord I am ever standing before us. I go to the king, said Esther. To all previous outer experience, it was death to go to the king. But Esther felt the celestial I go in her breast and faced the invisible Lord standing masterful and majestic where other people only saw Xerxes the Terrible. And that is from the book of Esther. If you're not familiar with the story, it's a good one. Old born drunk, who had never had any will or mind, laid his hands upon his breast, where the spark celestial glows in all people, and said, I am determined to find God. And all the criminals and debauched of his part of London turned out with heads bowed and hands in hand, because old born drunk, blear-eyed, less sought, found God. I praise God that I am healed, shouted one who felt their spark celestial stir to speak as truth speaks by inner Lord despite outer diseased contentions. And though all people sided with his outer contentions or diseased form, he spoke again, more loudly still, of the Lord's spark burning truth in his breast. Praise God, he has made me whole, I am healed. And his truth of his own Lord's self transfused and uplifted and outshone, so that his outer frame glowed with the beauty of health, and all those who had sided with his previous showings were confounded. Let them be confounded that are adversaries to my soul, cried King David, sensing the glow of the Christ spark in his bosom, the meeting place of the majestic Lord with every human form. I cannot retract. I am that, exclaimed a young girl who had felt the glow of the stainless spark in her breast, and though she was held as untruthful, she fulfilled in herself all that she had said of herself. I am that. She had spoken of the future as in the present tense, and that alone was her offense. Let us make no blunder here. The verities are in all tenses the same. The I am that belongs to us now as it was in the beginning and always shall be, unabrogated forever. Whatever we will be, we are, as the Lord of self, ready to kindle the demonstration of I am that, according to our acknowledgement. Take thee one stick and write Judah, then take thee another stick, write Joseph, and they shall become one in thy hand, is our privilege. For the great things of our Judah self are the things our Joseph self can manifest. Okay, that's interesting. See, that's the third time she said that. She repeats herself a lot. But, maybe she was prepared for our attention span being what it is. So I'm going to repeat it until it sticks in your brain, is what she's saying. Okay. This has been called the knowing self, or the recognition of the pure splendor inherent in all humanity, as omniscience, omnipotence, self-spark, fearlessly waiting till I am that be boldly spoken. Where is thy spark, Lanu? Speak thou from that. Okay, that's the second time I've seen that quote. Joy follows hearkening to the voice of the ever-speaking highest. Thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of mine heart, and joy is strength. The joy of the Lord is your strength, and the strength is the bread of heaven. People shall feed in the strength of the Lord, and joy in the Lord is, as strength is a healing radiance. The merry heart doth good like a medicine. Okay. They do say laughter is the best medicine, and there is good research to prove that. The merry heart doth good like a medicine. The Lord loveth a cheerful giver, or a giver of cheer, for they tread on serpents. That is, they bring forth health and strength and wise words from their neighbors, as the sun draws forth the serpents of the stony field. Serpents were in old days symbolic of health, strength, and wisdom. And that's true because if you look at the caduceus, which is the symbol of medicine, which is also Hermes' staff, it's two serpents twined around a staff. Symbols of health. Canst thou draw out Leviathan? Asks the great voice addressing Job. Leviathan is the strongest beast of the sea, the strongest constituent of humanity's constitution is their joy cord. Canst thou make thy neighbor joyous? They are surely cured of all their maladies if thou canst wake the joy that slumbers unstirred in their being. Jeremiah had 3 diseases from grieving. Mine eyes do fail with tears, my bowels are troubled, my liver is poured out. No heart was ever stirred to healing joyousness in Jeremiah's atmosphere. But a person in the Himalayan mountains felt the smile of God so ardently that people went from miles around to get kindled into health by the mysterious influence of the far extending radioactivity of this person's smile. No condemnation abides with the awakened joy spark. I came not to condemn, said the healing Jesus. He that is of a merry heart hath a continual feast, said Solomon. His barrel of mead, his barrel of healing power, stayeth not. Okay. As the lily is not lessened in fragrance though a thousand people smell thereof, so the bottomless pit of the God spark stayeth not, is not lessened by much procession in extenso. There is that scattered and yet increase, is true of the I am that of myself, and of thou art that which I ardently proclaim to my neighbor. There is no limit to their joy fountain, their eye is with its divine fruiting. In other words, joy is a bottomless well. Go thy way, respondeth the mighty Lord of my neighbor's presence. Eat thy bread with joy, drink thy wine with merry heart, for God now accepteth thy work. Ye shall be named the priests of the Lord. People shall call you the ministers of our God. I will make thee a joy of many generations. This ninth tells of the joy that comes by communing with one stronger than nature's forces and wiser than humanity's mind. It's kind of interesting because you kind of picture Emma as dour, especially when you read her. She's kind of, I always envisioned her as this little bitty woman with this, she's got her head finger poking in your chest. And Jesse's described her the same way. So to hear her talk about joy is really interesting. To hear her talk about joy is really, really interesting. And your joy no person taketh away. For they that communeth with me strengtheneth. Gideon strengthened. The THs are just too much. Gideon communed with the Lord God invisible. He endureth year after year as seeing God. And the Lord looked on Gideon and said, Go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hands of the Midianites and the Amalekites, and all the children of the east lying along the valley like grasshoppers for multitude. And Gideon, who knew not the law that might be roused by communing, And Gideon, who knew not the law And Gideon, who knew not the law that might is roused by communing with the mighty, answered from his Joseph, or human sense of himself, O my Lord, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my family is poor in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. But suddenly Gideon rose up with a new sense of himself, kindled by communing with the one to whom great works are easy, and masterful deeds are simple. And he stood boldly forth before the haughty army of Israel, and said, Look on me. And the all-powerful soldiers of Israel acknowledged Gideon's right to untried martial leadership. He had touched the strength cord that stretches between the universal omnipotence and humanity's omnipotence. It is the joy cord also, and the love cord. It is the faith shout of I am victory in the hour of defeat. The mystery of the victorious vision of Esther and of David and of Gideon is our mystery of victorious vision by much communion with the same victorious Lord. Scientifically speaking, they all cognized from the God center of their being, struck back to God center by much association with the unseen worker, ever offering itself as almighty ally, without partiality to all, high or low, rich or poor, wise or foolish. Okay. In all of this, here's what I'm hearing. Do your spiritual practice. Because she says communing with. So, and Jessie talks about it all the time. You know, if you want something from the subconscious mind, you got to soften the subconscious mind up by going there regularly. Regular spiritual practice. So regularly communing with the strength, regularly communing with the joy, regularly communing with the intelligence, regularly communing with the I am, whatever that I am is that you are seeking. That is regular spiritual practice. Let's put it in plain English, or at least English for now. You know, in 200 years, somebody watching this video is going to go, what is she going on about? And then they'll translate it into their plain English, or whatever language they're speaking. So, you know, here we are. Okay, back to Emma, because I got to finish this up so that, oh yeah, I don't have much more to go. Okay. I don't want to put David off too far. So, scientifically speaking, oh, no. Wait, go back. As the actinic ray in the sun is the secret of its life-giving charm, so the joy of the Lord is its strength. And humanity may invigorate in that strength until they are royal, magnet to the life of their neighbor, to the health of their neighbor, to the joyous smile of their neighbor, like Jesus to the ruler's child, Peter to Tabitha, Paul to Eutychus. I'm sorry, it's Eutychus. Occasionally my Greek gets weird. Actually, my Greek is always weird because I don't speak Greek. Mystic joy of heart that draws forth the Judah self of the sick is the magnetic energy which no person on earth exhibits in the plenitude of its attractive energy, because no person puts forth the magnetic I, center of their being, the I, Jesus' hand, that came not to be ministered unto, but to minister. As the magnetic spark center of our being, we are the Son of Righteousness, with healing in their wings. As the sun draws the oak tree out the acorn stiff cortex, up through the hard mold, past the tough grass roots, to centuries of forest life, so the hand that taketh the yoke from off the Judah jaws of humanity must move out from a central magnet, stronger than death, stronger than Satan, or the non-alliance of the sick themselves. There is no Satan except such non-alliance. That's in parentheses. Gotta love Emma. She's like, no, there's no Satan. Except such non-alliance. All right, then. I love this. And I love her. No accusations abides at the magnetic center of our being. If it is love that ministers, asking nothing in return. It can wake to such might by our alliance with the mighty that it draws forth the integrity that hides like a giant asleep in the hearts of all people. The recognition of giant integrity waiting to be awakened annuls the disposition to condemn. There is no time to parley with the would-be hinderings. The main business engrosses. It is your will. It is my will. It is God's will. Come forth. And even Lazarus may not resist that king's command. Interesting. It is a lodestar to the logos. Logos is Greek for spirit. Okay? So it is a lodestar to the logos of humanity. It draws forth the axiom of their childship to the spirit. It wakes the key word to their divine destiny. There is a message speaking within me from the heavens, whispering within me even in my sleep. It stirs the victorious I am that. I am a writer, said Balzac. Was not this word the chord to which his life vibrated? Did not that word act like a chain pump to the pool of genius hidden in his bosom? But there is a deeper and further reaching adequacy lying at the root of our being. Then Balzac spoke. There is an axiom that is bone of our bone and sinew of our sinew. It came with us when we hailed hither from our heavenly spirit's bosom. I don't know if this is a printing error, but there's just an H. H. We speak it forth. Word for word, letter for letter. Maybe that was supposed to be here. Here we speak it forth, word for word and letter for letter. We are the sunshine and gladness of every life with which we associate. No situation daunts us. It is the laughing topaz stone of fearlessness, because nothing has the power to hurt its self-existent verity. No wonder that the true topaz stone, emblem of unkillable joyousness, is almost priceless in the gem markets of the world. Okay. I don't know what line I wanted to underline, so I just started. Inward buoyancy. I do love that word. Buoyancy. Buoyancy. I like that she uses it. It's fun to say. Inward buoyancy, kindling into speed, dissolves danger, animosity, failure. It puts them at disadvantage. I have set the Lord always before me. Therefore, my heart is glad. My flesh also shall rest in hope, said David. He got his gladness of heart from setting the Lord always before his face, and the confidence of his flesh rose to such a vigor that he set Goliath to one side, though a whole nation trembled at the sight of him. To this day, the words, I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, which David used when he faced Goliath, have something of the victorious self-executive David energized into them, even when the genesis of their energy is not noted. They are living examples of people who, though they have not set the Lord always before their faces, and therefore have not stirred the joy spark of their being, yet have been made mysteriously triumphant by repeating David's words, I come unto thee in the name of the Lord of hosts. So even if you don't do it all the time, if you do it, it will work. But if you would do it all the time, it would work better. It's what she hasn't said. The words turn their vision to the hard problems of their life as being met by the unseen ally who saith, I will contend with them that contendeth with thee. It is a continuation of the shout of the Israelites following on after the ark of the Lord as it led forward into the ranks of their enemies. Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. Their vision towards an unseen ally moving with irresistible might before them, wreaked havoc among their enemies, took the yoke of enmity off the jaws of their rightful safety, drew glad security into their plain view. I was to them as they that take off the yokes of their jaws. Haggai promised that the desire of all nations shall come. He meant that the glorious Lord ever facing shall be acknowledged, recognized, sound, free wherever we look. Like attracts like. Magnetic gladness of the heart attracts gladness of heart. This medicine divine stays waiting high watch, self-recognition, joyous association with the Lord, I am of our neighbor, fearlessness of their hurting power, fearlessness of all hurting powers, heavenly hosts for antiphons. Harvest from seeds that was scattered on the borders of blue Galilee. He that overcometh will I give power over the nations. To overcome is to come over or above our circumstances and bodily feelings by looking above to God, ever beholding hitherward, is to identify with power above the nations and combinations of delusions as divine magnets to the strong, glad, free self, even of multitudes. Great multitudes came unto him, and he healed all. From many an ancient river, from many a palmy plain, they call us to deliver their Lord, their land from error's chain. She just puts these little snippets of poems in there. It's really interesting. Him that overcometh, I will make a pillar. Pillar is strength. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Joy gives mysterious potency to hands visible and to hands invisible. To stretch forth invisible hands and touch responsive strong spirit and say, come forth, is to go into all the world and lay hands on, that multitudes may come forward, repossessing their own wholeness. And I just used the wrong highlighter. Got me a green highlighter instead of a purple one. Oh well. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither, and they ascended. And Joshua was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands upon him. And when Paul had laid his hands upon them, the Holy Ghost came to them, and they spake with tongues and prophecy. Though the angel of humanity's presence is shown ages long renitency to wails of woe, it springs in full orbed splendor forth to greet the sceptered words of the joyous Shiloh spark of the new healer. And then she speaks Latin. Qui mitiditas est. With vision cast downward, Mary was accusing some gardener of hiding her Lord. With upward vision she beheld the Lord and no guilty gardener. She brought forth the angel out of the heavenly spaces and forgot that the guilty gardener ever existed. They shall forget misery as waters that pass away. Thus, with upward vision does the delusional age end. And the reality age appear. Upward vision draws up from our native root of sincerity. By upward vision, oft practiced, every human being starts anew from their sincerity root and drops the dry branches of lower attention, which have formulated into nervous prostration, decrepitude, poverty, discouragement, apprehension, and flourishes forth from their sincerity root of vigor everlasting, their bottomless life pit, their healing joy fountain, their winning bosom spark, gathering the angelhood of the universe to companionship. Is it not written, ruling all nations with rod of iron, or with the irresistible pulling strength of magnetic iron? I, if I be lifted up, will draw all people unto me. So, with divine allurements, again, at the alphabet of mysticism, we are brought with David to lift up our heart with our hands unto God in the heavens, with sweet commandment praying, turn thou us unto thee, O Lord, renew our days as of old. This is the heavenly exhortation that makes our message as ointment poured forth. This causes the responsive nations to say with David's son, for the great ministry's sake, draw me, we will run after thee. Many waters cannot quench our love of thy wondrous word. That Memra, which created the world, which brought Israel out of Egypt, which brought the miracles recorded in the deep books of Exodus. From the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. Is it not always understood that darkness is ignorance? The 6th hour sets forth the law of spontaneous or volitional calling after the unknown and invisible, to let it take possession of us after its own fashion. The 7th and 8th tell of forging ahead for our neighbors unknown and universal, best good to take possession of them, manifesting after its own fashion. But the 9th, in all ages, treats of the knowing, the cognizance, the independent awareness of our own perception of the reality of the highest and best self of our neighbor and the angel of its presence. Okay. I believe that from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. That's when Jesus died. So interesting that she uses that quote. And here's her little poetry snippet. What truth would number 9 we see, shall we remember most? The orders it shall call to mind of all the heavenly host. The tangibility of the immortal and unspoilable self, clothed, housed, fed, strong, glad, free, as the outward sign of our recognition of the oneness of its Judah self and Joseph self, or of their Judah self and their... I'm just making a mess of the line. Hang on, let me try this again. The tangibility of the immortal and unspoilable self, clothed, housed, fed, strong, glad, free, as the outward sign of our recognition of the oneness of their Judah and Joseph self. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, ye have done it unto me. This closes the age of darkness, of the hiddenness of the self, and gives tactile value to the angel of God's presence speaking to us and dealing with us. Whenever a human being speaks to us or faces us, we appreciate that as there is but one supreme self in the universe, ever inviting each self to transcend itself by recognizing of its own one supreme self, we are all brethren because our neighbor's one supreme self is our supreme self also. This is the genesis of the injunction to love thy neighbor as thyself. It is the Brahman self, the one self, thou that self of most ancient teachings. Cornelius, a centurion of the Roman army, had lifted up his fearing vision Godward till the angel of the High Supreme was tangibly present before him, conversing with him as person to person, lovely, masterful, wise. At the 9th hour of the day it was, as we read, Acts 10th chapter. At the 9th hour, Jesus gave up the ghost. He dropped the sense of a body or mind differentiated from the supreme self. He sent forth his divine influence, untrammeled by form, to be contagioned by all people, world without end. Okay. So maybe the 6th hour is where he was stabbed, and the 9th hour is when he gave up. That's when he said, I'm done with this body, and moved on. Okay. I thought I remembered that, but I wasn't sure how it worked. Okay. The Levitical law of Hebraism reads that people shall eat of the old fruits till the ninth. That is, we must stand by what we are taught as gospel truth of appearances until we know how to speak by our untaught self. Okay. Peter was trying in his second epistle to tell us that we have a native word of prophecy, whereunto we do well that we take heed until the day dawn and the day star arise in our hearts. Day star is lodestar, magnetic center, where the original knower in us waits our spoken I am that, and our neighbor waits our spoken thou art that, and the very world waits our I decree. Look upon Zion, says Isaiah. There the glorious Lord will be unto thee a place of broad rivers and streams. And the inhabitants shall not say, I am sick. The people that dwell therein shall be forgiven. Surely this is a precious treasure, this topaz stone of independent recognition and independent speech. What reactions of new wisdoms lie quiescent in us till our eyes do look on Zion, and the Lord supreme be the place of our vision's glad rest. What consort with angels our neighbors shall experience by our right view of them, as Mozart experienced new music by viewing angelic choirs. Every other way of viewing our fellow people exposes us to their shadow system discordant traits. Jeremiah speaks of a whole nation as having eye failure because of vain watching towards a people that could not save. Balaam of Mesopotamia caught a cursing mind from associating with Balak, king of the Moabites, who was filled with the cursing mind. So Balaam was willing to curse the Israelites or any other people Balak might suggest. King Balak had a psychological influence over his associates, like many powerful people of our own time. And Midian, his envoy, who was also under his spell to defeat whomever might oppose him, right or wrong, added his vocal persuasions to the king's forceful psychology, and when Balaam got well into their swing, he prayed God to make him strong to sweep the Israelites off the earth. After a night's communion with the I Am on high, he opened his mouth with sublime words of blessing and foretelling for the Israelites. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall arise out of Israel. Balak and the princes of Moab with Midian angrily reminded him that he had been hired and influenced to curse, not to bless. But Balaam, still under the bright sway of high wisdom, caught by a night's communion with the transcending, could not enter again into their psychological aura, and despite their threats, being as it were in a trance, having his eyes still open, he pronounced the words of the high deliverer. How godly are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. Blessed is he that blesseth thee. How shall I curse whom God hath not cursed? Or how shall I defy whom God hath not defied? For from the tops of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. Lo, the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Balaam saw the life of the Jews on earth 3,000 years ahead of him, even up to this day, when the scepter of Israelitis star of the son of Jacob, is the morning magnet of the whole earth. The star that shone over the manger, now covering the earth with its light. He that overcornereth and keepeth the word of my patience, I also will keep him. Come over the personal hardships by looking up. Did not the great prophet say, into the days of world war and universal lamentation, look up? And that's Luke, the 21st chapter. Keep the great name or the great word as set forth in the first study and prove the promise. I will keep thee from the hour of temptation. A servant girl, feeling the spark burning in her breast, said, "I must be a missionary. With God, all things are possible, and He called me to be a missionary." When the mission board received her application, they told her she had not the credentials for foreign missionary work, but nothing could down the flame of the I am that, when once uttered and kept as precious truth. Is it any surprise to be told that when the delegates of different foreign mission stations were in the United States and heard her sing, "Waft, waft ye winds the story, and ye waters roll, till like the sea of glory it spreads from pole to pole, and still with thee, when purple morning breaketh, when the bird waketh, and the shadows flee, fairer than the morning, lovelier than daylight, dawns the sweet consciousness, I am with thee." They invited her to go to foreign shores with them, telling her plainly she could win more hearts with her singing than they could win with their preaching. Keep, therefore, the high watch and wonder-working name till the spark I am that lets loose its executive splendor with the I will and I decree. Such are the elect, who seem not to compete or strive, yet with the foremost still arrive, prevailing still, spirits with whom the stars connive to do their will. Speak from the spark dominant and see its dominion. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, as Isaiah prophesied. How reviving to humanity is the voice of God, will waking the silence of ages with the sceptered words addressed to the true self of our neighbor. It is your will to be glad and strong and free. It is my will that you be strong and glad and free. It is the will of high God that you be strong and glad and free. Walk with me, acknowledging no other voice than the voice of the Supreme, who cording all wills into its one will. I am that will. Thou art that will. God is that will. There is but one will. Humanity has become weary of its thoughts and seeks for higher power to free them from their mental prison. Corey. Look unto me. I will show thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. Jeremiah. Exaltation is the mystical visional sense. Wakes recognition of our own hidden God seed, and inspiration fans our God seed to full exhibition as children of the promised golden age. ECH. Oh, okay. So she talked about joy. She talked about the I am that. She talked about upward vision. She talked about the Judah and the Joseph self. She talked about a lot. And she talked about the one supreme self and the neighbor. And it's interesting that she spends a lot of time focusing on the neighbor. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And then, but she's going, you are your neighbor. You are that self. There is only one self. And then she did spend a fair amount of time talking about joy, which, like I said, we kind of have this image of her as kind of dour. I mean, they didn't smile in pictures, obviously. So we have this image of her dire, and maybe she wasn't. Maybe she had a wicked sense of humor. Maybe she laughed a lot. It'd be interesting to know. So, that was chapter 9. That was the ministry of, again, acknowledgement. So, this book has definitely been a challenge. Oh, and she did talk about spiritual work. Spiritual work. About doing your spiritual work, and how when you commune with the I am, nothing can stand between you and your good. And communing with the one, communing with the I am that, can even get you out from under influence. So, as the story of Balaam. So, all right. Well, that was chapter 9 of High Mysticism, and I am going to wrap this up and get off so that David can get on whenever he's going to. And I'll be back with you. So we will do chapter 10 next week. As far as I know, I don't have anything happening, although my mom is jonesing for a trip to the quilt museum, so we'll see how that goes. And I will see you tomorrow morning, and we will go back to the hidden power of the Bible. All right, beloveds, take care of yourself, know that you are loved, and I will see you next time.